Hi, this is Career Coaching X's and O's, and my name is Mark Anthony Peterson. I am a futurist and the managing executive at Sierra Consulting, a small business strategy and technology consulting firm. Part of our practice is providing coaching to business executives on matters of strategy and career issues. This podcast is the distillation of some of those sessions where we've worked with executives to resolve issues that may slow their career growth or hurt their business prospects. To learn more, visit our website, ceyero.com, CEYERO.com. Today's show is entitled Working in Corporate America with an Ethnic Name? Consider using a stage name. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with ethnic names. The way I see it, the more vegetables in the soup, the better the flavor. What spurred this podcast was an Ebony Magazine August 15th, 2018 article written by Jessica Bennett entitled Two Black Women Denied a Job Because of Ghetto Names. These two women from St. Louis received a response back from Mentality Health, an employer that had posted an online ad for a customer service representative job. The response stated that neither woman would be considered because of their ghetto names. The women's names were Hermesia Robinson and Darnisha Zachary. Now, Mentality Health claims that they would never send a response stating that an potential employee, was rejected because of their name, and they point to a potential disgruntled employee who may have sent that notice out. Nonetheless, studies indicate that even if it's not overt like it is in this case, there is an underlying bias against ethnic names. In 2003, the National Bureau of Economic Research conducted a field test where they tested whether the names Emily and Greg were more employable than the names Lakeisha and Jamal. They essentially responded to 1,300 help wanted ads for a variety of sales positions, administrative support, clerical, and customer service jobs posted in the Boston Globe and the Chicago Tribune. They generated 5,000 fake resumes and randomly assigned the names Emily Walsh, Greg Baker, Jamal Jones, and Lakeisha Washington to those resumes. Now, they picked these names based on the Massachusetts naming data between 1974 and 1979 to give names that were accurate to that period. The resumes with the white sounding names got 50% more callbacks than the names that appeared to be ethnic or associated with black people. Now, researchers Marianne Beckstrom and Sunil Mulane Nathan found that white applicants only need to send out 10 resumes to get one callback, whereas blacks need to send out 15 to get a single callback. Given this research and follow-up subsequent research that indicates that naming has an impact on at least the callback. Now, it doesn't speak to whether or not the hiring practices are discriminatory, but it points to at least the first gate having a significant impact on who gets through the door for the interview. And we've seen subsequent studies that point in the same direction. even spilling over into the gig economy, where a Harvard study indicated that ethnic sounding names were getting rejected by platforms like Airbnb at a higher rate than all other names. Given this field study and others like it, is it time for individuals with ethnic names to consider using a stage name? PhD cultural studies, Wu Halem, who's also a Harvard fellow, wrote an article in November of 2016 where she explained how the Chinese go about picking their Western name. And in the article, she's quoted as saying, having Western names makes it easier for a Chinese person to navigate cross-cultural interactions. Now, Ms. Halen states that the practice of taking on Western names started in the 1970s for the Chinese as they began their reform and opening up their markets. Now, this practice is not widely used across all of the Asian industrialized nations. Korea and Japan, for example, do not have the practice of adopting Western names. Wu goes on to say that the practice of taking on a Western name does not eliminate the birth name for Chinese business people. They just take it on as an additional moniker, like a stage name. Is that practice something that should be considered by American blacks who feel like names that were given to them are holding back their job prospects? Well, I wanted to take it a little deeper and look at celebrities who've changed their names in order to open up more doors for themselves. In an August 22nd, 2018 article from Ranker.com, they provided a list of the celebrities who had changed their names. Let's run down a few. I think you'd be surprised at some of the name changes that have occurred. Nicki Minaj. No, that's not her real name. Her real name is Onika Tanya Morat. Katy Perry. She was born Catherine Elizabeth Hudson. Tom Cruise has a great movie out now. He was born Thomas Cruise Mapother IV. Alicia Keys, terrific songbird. She was born Alicia Agallo Cook. Natalie Portman was born Natalie Hirschlag. Charlie Sheen, born Carlos Irwin Estevez. Tina Turner was born Anna Mae Bullock. The late David Bowie was born David Robert Jones. Miley Cyrus, who could forget about her? Well, you may have forgotten about her because her birth name was Destiny Hope Cyrus. Nicolas Cage, born Nicholas Kim Coppola. Elton John, the voice behind one of my favorite songs on The Lion King, was born Reginald Kenneth Dwight. Marilyn Monroe, had a poster of her hanging up in my college dorm room, was born Norma Jean Mortensen. And Daily Show standout Jon Stewart was born Jonathan Stewart Leibowitz. You can see that a number of different celebrities from many different backgrounds thought that maybe their name would prevent them from achieving the career goals that they sought. And they took the step of taking on a stage name that would reduce that friction and give them the possibility of achieving the fame that they thought that they had the talent to achieve those goals. I want to give you a couple of examples from my life. My name, as I mentioned, is Mark Anthony Peterson. One of my first jobs during the time when I was getting my MBA was with a cereal company in Minnesota. Minnesota is known as the land of lakes and the land of Mark Petersons. Yes, Petersons live in Minnesota in abundance. When I received the internship at the cereal company, I was placed on the biggest brand in the company. Many of the African Americans that worked there wanted to know my secret. How had I gotten the plum internship with the top brand? Well, I think what stood out was the fact that I had a terrific resume, Ivy League undergrad, Ivy League MBA, started 2 businesses when I was in undergrad. So I showed a real entrepreneurial zeal. But when you looked at my resume, I looked like a native Minnesota resident, Mark Peterson. There was no friction when the resume was reviewed, and when they looked at the background, I got an opportunity to get in the room and make the case for getting that internship. After getting the internship, I went out to lunch with a number of the other interns and employees from the company. Suddenly, the restaurant paged Mark Peterson. Not thinking that anyone would want to talk to me, but still they were calling my name. I went over to the desk to see what they may have needed with me, only to find that there were 3 other Mark Petersons at the desk inquiring over the same matter. Those Mark Petersons were approximately my same height, 6 feet tall, but they were all blonde. I laughed and said, "Hey, when are you guys going to invite me over for dinner? I'm sure Mom's been looking for me." I found the same kind of reaction when I joined a Facebook group of Mark Petersons. So far, I've only found one other African American who is the same age as I, and he played basketball for Cornell over the same time period when I was in undergrad. So now I understand why so many people kept asking me why I had missed so many shots. The point is that my name, my given name, being one that's so common, reduced the friction when I submitted resumes for jobs that I thought I could excel at. I've never been faced with the prospect of considering a stage name, but I can say the name that I was given has provided me the opportunity to walk through more doors and to show that an ethnic face can succeed. Later in my career, as I rose through the senior ranks, I became a mentor to a number of black men and women who were trying to follow in my same path. There was a young woman who did have a particularly unique name. She was a standout analyst and was preparing to apply to all of the same MBA programs that I had applied to. As I worked on her recommendation, she came, sat in my office with a worried look and asked the question, should I submit my applications without this name? Should I use a different name? My feedback to her was, how passionate are you about the name? As tears rolled down her eyes and she explained why her mother had picked that name, my immediate reaction was never, ever remove that name from any document representing you. The name was that important. Needless to say, she was accepted at every school and has gone on to a fantastic business career. So the moral of the story and the data also shows that names may have or may create a barrier and some friction, but there's no correlation between that and poverty or economic success. Even the study cited earlier showed that African Americans can get that call back. They just have to submit 5 more resumes. Not always fair, but that's what career coaching is for. To give you the realities and to show you the path to success. And in this case, persistence. Slow and steady wins the race. So in conclusion, I would say consider a stage name if you believe your name creates enough friction where you're not getting through the door. It's not that you're going to give up that name. Like Alicia Keys, like Nicki Minaj, like so many others, you're creating a name that is used for work and giving you the opportunity to display your talent. But in the end, it's not about the name, it's about what you bring to the table. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I know it's a controversial subject, and I hope what we've brought to the table today gives you some nugget and something to think about as you continue to build your corporate career. This has been Career Coaching X's and O's, and I am Mark Anthony Peterson, the Managing Executive at Sierra Consulting.